Consider these scenarios. Learners memorize vocabulary words for a quiz, but don't use the words in their everyday writing or speech. Learners complete percentage problems, but can't calculate the discount on the sale price of an item that they want to purchase. You probably have similar scenarios from your own teaching experiences. And what we're seeing here is the lack of application or transfer of learning. Welcome back to the Makisa Critical Thinking series. The purpose of this video is to help you better understand the critical thinking process of transfer and to get familiar with strategies to help learners transfer their learning to a greater degree. So what is transfer? Transfer is the ability to apply what one has learned across a variety of contexts. During the school year, this can happen in many ways. Between one problem to the next, from unit to unit, or between subjects. But most importantly, learning should transfer to a variety of practical settings, such as the home, community, and the workplace. It has been said that transfer of learning to the real world is the whole purpose of education. So learners are not taught to read so they can just pass a test. They're taught language arts so that they could consider everyday texts and so that they could communicate effectively at their jobs. And the goal of studying history is not to memorize dates, but to develop a broad historical perspective of the whole world. And learners are not taught math to just solve simple problems in the classroom. They're taught math so they can handle their personal finances and so that they can solve complex calculations in everyday life. So now that we know the importance and the purpose of transfer, let's look closer at two types of transfer. The first type of transfer is called near transfer. This is when the learning context and the transfer context are similar. For example, when we apply the skills we have learned to drive a car to driving a truck, or when we apply basic reading skills when we open an unfamiliar book for the first time. The second type of transfer is called far transfer, and this is when the learning context and the transfer context are different. Like when learners use tested vocabulary words in everyday conversations, or when learners use their knowledge about percentages when out shopping. It's easy for us to have the misconception that transfer happens automatically or easily, because as we have seen, in some cases it does. But as it turns out, transfer is a much more complicated process than we might imagine. And experts point to two main reasons for the failure to transfer. The first one has to do with how the brain works. Basically, when we learn something, it is tied to the context in which it was learned. And so everything learned essentially is built into separate networks. And this makes it difficult for knowledge and skills in one network to connect or transfer to another network. The second reason for failure to transfer has to do with the initial learning. So if students learn at a very shallow level, it's going to limit their ability to transfer skills or information to a new situation. So without that deeper knowledge, learners can't really pick up what they've learned and apply it into unrelated contexts. So we've provided some helpful strategies and tips that teachers can use on a regular basis to help students to transfer their learning. Pause here and read over the information on resources 1 and 2. As you read, take note of any ideas that stand out to you as the most helpful and useful. I know this is a lot to think about, so take some time here to collect your thoughts and use the reflection questions on resource 3. Then you'll be ready to complete your plan of action. I encourage you to experiment and try some of the tips and strategies so that you can help your students become even better critical thinkers and apply the things that they're learning in the classroom to the real world. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.